In the 1600s, there was a food so rare, so precious, and so intoxicating that people were willing to die for it. A single handful of it could buy you a house, a sack of it could fund a war, and a monopoly over it could control the world. This is the story of the food that nearly started a war and changed history forever. Europe, 1600s, a cold gray continent obsessed with something it couldn't grow. A food so fragrant it made kings feel powerful, so flavorful it transformed rotten meat into feasts, and so rare that merchants locked it in iron chests like treasure. Spices, nutmeg, cloves, cinnamon, pepper. Today you sprinkle these freely on cookies and lattes. Back then they were worth more than gold. Nutmeg especially was believed to cure plague, increase passion, strengthen memory, and protect against evil spirits. Even doctors swore by it. Europe wasn't just obsessed, Europe was addicted. But there was one problem: it grew only in one place on Earth. A tiny cluster of islands in Indonesia called the Banda Islands, barely visible on a map, yet powerful enough to lure explorers across oceans, because whoever controlled Banda controlled the spice world. And two European empires wanted it all. On one side, the Dutch East India Company, VOC, the richest corporation in world history, with its own navy, its own soldiers, and permission to wage war. On the other, the English East India Company, young, ambitious, desperate to break into the spice trade. Both wanted nutmeg, both wanted Banda, and both were willing to fight for it. But here's the twist: the people who already lived on the Banda Islands, peaceful traders, not warriors, didn't want to belong to anyone. They had traded spices freely for centuries. But the Europeans didn't understand free trade. They believed in monopoly, controlling everything, letting no one else in. This was the spark. A spark that would ignite one of the most brutal and forgotten conflicts in food history. 1609, the Dutch arrived first. They demanded the Bandanese sign a treaty that said the Dutch alone could buy their spices. At Dutch prices forever, the Bandanese refused. They didn't want to be ruled. They didn't want a monopoly. They didn't want war. But the Dutch East India Company wasn't used to hearing no. So they brought soldiers, warships, mercenaries. They accused the Bandanese of breaking the treaty. And what followed is one of the darkest food-related massacres in history. Villages were burned, leaders were executed, thousands were killed or starved. Survivors were enslaved and forced to work on nutmeg plantations. This wasn't a battle, it was a conquest, all for nutmeg. A spice you now buy for a few dollars. A spice people once killed for. But even after the Dutch seized Banda, they discovered a problem. The English weren't giving up, not yet. The English managed to seize one tiny island, Run Island, barely 2 kilometers long, but packed with priceless nutmeg trees. For a decade, the English clung to this island like their lives depended on it. Why? Because controlling even one nutmeg island meant unimaginable profit. The Dutch attacked Run over and over, trying to wipe the English out. Some battles lasted days, some sieges lasted months. The island changed hands repeatedly. It became the spark for a far bigger conflict, the Anglo-Dutch Wars. A series of naval battles and global clashes between two empires, triggered partially by this food. Nutmeg wasn't the only cause, but it was a major one. The world's first corporate war. The world's first resource war. One fought not for gold, but for flavor. But the strangest twist of all, the English eventually lost Run Island, yet they won something far bigger. After years of conflict, both sides were exhausted. So in 1667, they signed a treaty, a bizarre, unbelievable trade deal. The Dutch kept Run Island. The English got a different island, halfway across the world, Manhattan. Yes, that Manhattan, New York. The Dutch gave the English New York City in exchange for a tiny nutmeg island. At the time, Manhattan was a muddy trading post called New Amsterdam. The Dutch thought they got the better deal. After all, nutmeg was worth more than cities. But history had other plans. Manhattan would later become one of the most valuable pieces of land on Earth. A global financial capital, a cultural giant. Meanwhile, the price of nutmeg collapsed when other countries started growing it elsewhere. The food they fought for, it lost its value. The island they traded away, it became iconic. The trade that nearly caused a war became one of the most ironic deals in history. This tiny spice reshaped maps, fueled global trade, caused massacres, shifted empires, created Manhattan, and helped launch an era of corporate warfare. The Dutch East India Company became the richest company the world has ever seen, worth more than Apple, Google, and Amazon combined. All because of food, because of flavor. aromatic, magical flavor growing on tiny trees in a remote corner of Indonesia. Today, when you grate nutmeg over hot chocolate or add a pinch to a holiday dessert, you're using something that once sparked fear, greed, violence, and empire. A spice that changed history. A spice people were willing to die for. A spice that nearly started a war. And next time you taste it, you'll know the truth behind that tiny pinch of warmth. If you enjoyed this journey into the dark side of food history, don't forget to watch our next video, The Poisonous Food We Eat Every Day, or Killer Dessert Served to a King, and subscribe for more forgotten stories behind the foods you love and the secrets they hide.